Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
This microphone isn't for you, it's for our camera back there. Amber just said, go ahead, Roger. I'd rather have you just tell them who you are. To give you a little bit of background, I was actually spoken grand for, I've known Wendy and Jennifer and the people here, Darren, and for quite a while. And so I was asked to come back and do an assessment. Then we decided to redo that and just really come back and where's our to-do list? And it's a step up from all the work that was already been done. So what we're doing this week is drilling down deeper than what was done last summer and last fall. So just to give you some background, I live down in Phoenix, Arizona, but I'm originally from the San Juan Islands, where half my classmates were from Victoria and half of them were from the States. And I started my career, I worked in the concert industry, and out of the concert industry, I did tour management in the concert industry. And out of that, I met a guy from 1960s rock and roll, Paul Revere and the Raiders, who we lost a few years ago. And he goes, Roger, you're never going to change the world in the concert industry. I had ulcers dealing with Fleetwood Mac. I thought they were going to kill each other. And so Paul says, I know these guys in Canada, they're desperately trying to get this resort going. Why don't you go up and help them? And it was Whistler. I had no idea what I was doing, but he said, you're a good promoter, go up there. So I went up to Whistler, talked to the village of Whistler, talked to a few developers up there, and my job was to recruit investment into Whistler. I had no idea. And so I went into Vancouver, and the one big win we got is I was in Seattle in our office, and I saw this article about this company based out of Vancouver and Seattle that did warehouses and office buildings, and they were looking to diversify. So I called them up in the Seattle office and made an appointment, went down there and talked to him, told him about the big vision of Whistler Resort. And then he says, well, you need to go up to our Vancouver office. And it was IntraWest, who ended up spending nearly $1 billion in Whistler and really made it work. But when I went into Vancouver and would say, you know what, we have this really big project going on up the road about 70 miles. Sorry, I'm not in kilometers on that, probably 100 kilometers. And the general attitude is, why would anybody invest in Whistler? The base is only 2,500 feet. It rains a lot. The highway there is the sea to die highway, not sea to sky highway. I mean, it was just, we couldn't get them to do it. They couldn't see the future. And this is back when Japan is buying up America, and Canada. And so we went and got Japanese money. They didn't have any clouds over their eyes. They didn't have any preconceived notions. We made Whistler work. After we did Whistler, I worked for about 7 or 8 years doing other resorts all over the United States and Canada and in Western Europe. And then I got a call. And somebody said, Roger, could you come and talk to us about your experience in economic development? You know what I said? What's that? Because I didn't come from the public sector side. I thought I was just a salesperson trying to get investment up there. I was a marketer, and so I didn't get it. And so then I started putting two and two together. Since 1991, we've worked in 2,000 communities all across Canada. We've worked in all the provinces, probably 40 or 50 communities in BC, all of Alberta, and then last year I was in Ontario 7 times and on and on. So when we're doing all this work, and it was from tourism, we found out one statistic, is that if you want visitors, where do they spend most of their money? And whatever brings them into Grand Forks, what else do we spend money on? Because you know what? They could come to Grand Forks and ride your trails all day long and not spend 1 single cent in your town. And it turns out the number one activity, not the reason they come, but the number one activity is shopping, dining, and entertainment in a pedestrian-friendly setting, your downtown. That's where 80% of the non-lodging spending takes place. It changed everything. And so now probably 85% of our work is downtowns. So what happened is we went out and we surveyed 2,000 downtowns and downtown districts in the US and Canada, and some of them were like Old Strathcona, which is a district in Edmonton. Some of them were small little towns of like 400 or 500 people. We surveyed, and out of those, we found the 400 most successful downtowns. And I'm not going to get into all the criteria we used, but out of those, we found the 20 most common ingredients for success. And the biggest challenge was everybody thinking, oh, we're going to go do a bunch of streetscapes. We're going to make downtown beautiful, and they're still dead as a doornail. Because it's what's in the buildings that makes you a draw. And so we broke these 20 ingredients into 3 parts. Here's where property owners need to be at the table. Here's where the city or town would play a role. And then here's what the businesses downtown need to take the lead on. And all 3 integrate. And so number 1, because I'm going to dig right into this, nearly all of them began with a plan. And by the way, this is what you need, branding. What is it you want to be known for in Grand Forks? By the way, when I read these reports, one thing that kept coming up is we don't even know what we're about. Well, that was a problem way before the floods. That's a problem you've had for 20 years. When I spoke here, when was that, 10 years ago about branding, still didn't find your focus. What put Grand Forks on the map? And then development, what do we need to do so we own the brand? And then marketing, how do we tell the world? And action plan. I'm not a fan of strategic plans. I think strategic plans are gone by yesterday. And so because what you end up with is a plan that sits on a shelf gathering dust. You need a to-do list. And so action plans, this is Caldwell, Idaho one with branding, development, marketing, action plan, and even your table of contents is a checklist. You work down the list. This is a plan that sits on your desk, not on a shelf. And then you might have there's recommendation number 5, there's recommendation number 6. I mean, here's one for Tinley Park. I mean, this is what you need. We did one for Okotoks in Alberta. And so the problem is strategies, goal objectives, no more than 10 pages. Actually, the last time I did one of these, no more than 3. No executive summaries. Otherwise, they're going to read the executive summary. They're never going to read the plan. And so an action plan is to-do list. Here's what we recommend. And by the way, tomorrow morning, I'm going to present the plan for Grand Forks. I mean, this doesn't need to take 6 months to do. You've already done all the legwork in all of this work. So now let's drill deep. And so who's charged with implementation? Is it Chamber of Commerce? Is it the city? Is it Department? Is it transportation? Is it county? Is it the province? Who's going to implement it? How much will it cost? Where will the money come from? And when would it be done? And what's the rationale for doing it? That's an action plan. Start with a plan. Okay? And you're going to get it tomorrow. So we're going to knock that one right off the list. And then number 2 is they defined a strong brand and a retail focus. And by the way, notice the 5 stars. That means all 400 towns had this. Not all of them start with a plan. A lot of them were organic. They just kind of evolved. But this one is one every single one of them had. And you could have any of these ideas. I mean, it could be, oh, we're about kids and family, or we're about food, or we're about nightlife, water features, splash pad, your rivers, antiques, I mean, Western wear, home accents, recreation, but it needs to be specific, performing arts, visual arts. I mean, you could, whatever you want. You could do a brand on Legos if you wanted. And so, I mean, all of these could be different brands. Because here's what you need to do is before you start anything, and by the way, I want you to forget about the floods. Now, I don't want you to forget about the floods in terms of money and grants and those kinds of things. But this is a challenge you had way before the floods. The floods are a great way to say, look, we need a fresh start. You always start with what do we want to be when we grow up? Or what's our second act? You're timber and mining town. Like so many of them, what's your second act? What do you want to be known for now? You know, towns There are some towns in BC that have done a very good job, and you've kind of got stuck. Ones that have done a very good job, Kimberly, of course, themed, Nelson, Revelstoke. I mean, do I need a, if you go to a lot of these, Soyuz, Penticton, I mean, most of them have a pretty strong brand, and I think Grand Forks is kind of stuck like, what are you about? And I don't think you should be. And so, and here's why this is so important, why it's number 2 on the list. If you want to be about kids and family, where do we put the carousel in downtown? I mean, if you want to be about biking, where do we have our bike shops? Downtown, not out on the highway. Where do we have our bike shop? Downtown and outfitters, where we can rent bikes. Or if it's tubing down the river, can we rent tubes, get them full? I mean, etc. If we want to be about nightlife, where do we put the microbrews? And by the way, it doesn't mean you have to have one or the other of these. But once you're known for something, the businesses that say, wow, I could make money off of that brand, then they're going to come here. And so that's why this is so important. And decide what you want the focus to be, and that will dictate the types of activities and events that you have, your streetscape design, types of businesses you'll attract downtown. And sometimes you have to do a transition. I mean, this is Barrie, Ontario. And they're going to be Uptown Barrie. This is El Dorado, Arkansas, a town of 20,000. It's showtime. Their whole thing is about festivals. This is York, Pennsylvania, industrial art and design. They have a focus. Caldwell, Idaho is about farm to table. So this is what Three Dog Night meant. I love doing Old Strathcona. If anybody Edmonton, Life of the Edmonton Party. It's where Edmonton goes to celebrate in Old Strathcona. And that's what their ads and everything looks like. So for Grand Forks yesterday, I said, what do you have that really sets you apart from everyone else? You either have to be different or better. And there was one thing that kept coming up, and that was biking. So last night I went in and I Googled biking capital British Columbia. Nobody came up. Whistler has mountain biking. Revelstoke has biking. Castlegar has biking. Almost everybody has biking. Nobody has claimed it as their brand. Nobody. That's their focus. Now that doesn't mean it's necessarily your tagline. But one thing that came out when we were talking yesterday is you have family-friendly biking, you got paved biking. We went and looked at some of these trails yesterday. You've got street biking, and you may need to add more bike lanes and things, but you also have mountain biking. You also have single track, which is more of the extreme mountain biking. You could do fat tire biking in the winter. You have BMX. You already have most of the ingredients. It's a brand you could easily grab onto so that you're known for something other than a city that went through a flood. Because otherwise that's just going to persist and nobody's ever going to think you're open again. You have to tell a different story. I mean, you just recently started putting bike racks downtown. We were walking downtown yesterday. And you know what was really funny is how long have the bike racks been up downtown?
The Unifab one has been up for quite a while, and we just got a new one next.
And the second they're up, they're full of bikes. I mean, even I'm staying out near in the industrial area out there in a little Airbnb. And even where we are, I saw people commuting out there to those factories out there on their bikes. I mean, when we were downtown and saw the bakery, I went, yes, come on, you guys. This is so simple. You already own something. Put it out there. Claim it. Own it. And so we went around and we saw all the biking trails. I mean, you know what was really interesting? We were walking downtown. We went to where the confluence of the two rivers are. There was half a dozen of us. And out of the half a dozen of us, half of us had never even been there. And I'm talking about people that grew up here. Because that used to be all homeless camps. And we were afraid to go there. It's stunningly beautiful. It's like even the locals don't even know what you have. Because they've been afraid to go there because it was all homeless camp. You could see the remnants. I mean, and so, but everywhere we were driving, we see more biking trails, whether they're paved, whether they're mountain biking, and just look at your terrain. I mean, a lot of these, like Riverside Meadow Trail, there were some of us in our group that were out there going, I've never been here before. Where did this come from? You have some great assets that you need to put front and center. And so to us, it was like, rather than go through a big, huge public process and say, what do we want to be known for? And then you end up with something generic like, we have something for everyone. By the way, have you ever gone anywhere that had something for everyone? No, we go where there's something for us, whether it's antiques, whether it's music, whether it's microbrews, food, whatever. And so we just thought, look at what you have. And does it need some work? Yeah, there are some places, but once you have a focus, all of these things can really take shape. So I thought I'd show you one example. We're working in Devon, which is a town of 6,300. It is located kind of near the West Edmonton Mall, kind of southwest of Edmonton. That's what they're known for. Imperial Oil, the first planned community in Canada. Being the first planned community in Canada, how many of you are going to go, wow, I want to go to Devon now? See, that's the problem. And they weren't known for anything that make you want to live there. And they're diversifying the oil industry. You move north. And so their brand is anything there. That is not their tagline. That's the perception people have of them. And that's the problem. And so they said, you know what? We're going to claim Biketown, Alberta. I said, well, how are you going to do that? I mean, you've got Canmore, you've got Banff, you've got all the Rockies, the Canadian Rockies. How are you going to outcompete? They said, no, we're talking street biking. And two gals, Janet and Michelle, took it on. They just took it on. And they came back to town. We did a brand camp for Travel Alberta, and we had all these towns there. And they said, we want to be Biketown, Alberta. And their goal was, we want to get people from Edmonton, because they don't have hotels. We want to get people from Edmonton to put their $5,000 bikes on the back of their BMWs and drive them out to Devon. Because they have all paved trails, and these are street bikes, all really gear grinding. The one's called Gear Grinding Hill, you name it. They came back and they got the town to stencil, welcome to Biketown, as you drive into Devon. They're promoting 30 kilometers of paved biking trails. That's all they're promoting. But then when it came to breast cancer awareness, they went and got old bikes and they painted them all pink and they lined them up and down their main street because they're about biking. They actually went out and got shirts for their counselors, and they even trademarked the word spokesperson. And when they trademarked the word spokesperson, they got a call from Raleigh Bicycles who said, we wish we had that tagline, that name. And they said, you know what? If you will build us a covered velodrome, which are very few in Canada, not even that many in the United States, we will sell you that. We will give you the spokesperson brand, and we will give you the Raleigh Velodrome. We'll give you the naming rights. And they said, we will fund 3/4 of it if the city will fund the last quarter. And the city says, yeah, we just don't want to do it. Never happened. But another thing happened is with this brand is I got a call one day. Janet and Michelle were on the phone, and they were in tears. I go, oh my gosh, what happened? They said, well, we have this group of citizens locally that said that we're about oil, we should be proud of our heritage, and we are not a bike town. And they were writing editorials slamming Michelle and Janet and their families. I mean, they were, and I was so furious, I said, I'll be right there. It took me like 4 months to get it on my schedule. So I went up there and did this workshop, and every chair was full by the time we started, but most of the people you see here were those negatives. And as I was setting up the stuff, they were sitting there just glaring at me the whole time, and I mean, I knew exactly how they saw me. And so, and I was furious. And I said, how can you be against biking? Now, this would never happen in Grand Forks, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's... It true happened that TSN was doing a contest all across Canada, and the city that got the most votes, city or town that got the most votes, would win a $25,000 grant to build a BMX park. And so all of a sudden, I was there, and all of these are high school kids, junior high school kids, even grade school kids were out there. We got a call in our office, which was in Seattle at the time. Got a call in our office From a kid who's probably in 5th or 6th grade saying, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm in Devon, Alberta, and we want to win that grant. Would you guys vote for us? So we sent out emails to everybody we know to vote for them, and guess what? Of all the cities, they beat Toronto, they beat Vancouver, they beat Victoria, they beat every big city in the entire country and won it. And within weeks, they're planning their BMX park, and it is up, it is running, it's amazing. Now, just because they have biking, they're not BC's biking, and their target is only Edmonton. So biking is still wide open in this province. And by the way, this is what it looks like. Grab life by the handlebars. And by the way, whatever your brand is, your brand should be up there. And by the way, you'll find it in Devon. Enjoy the ride. It's not about Grand Forks at the top. It's about why we should come here. All of a sudden, people in BMX were moving from Edmonton to Devon because their kids are big BMXers or bikers. They started having to build subdivisions and neighborhoods because their kids loved biking. I mean, it worked. And so they did a series of ads like these. You know, one of my favorites is this one. Only a biker understands why a dog sticks his head out the window. You know, they just had fun with it. And it really worked. They put up billboards all around the Edmonton area. And their biggest champions were in Edmonton. Edmonton was promoting Devon's brand. It's because that's where they came to do that, to bike. And they even did bookmarks. They gave out bookmarks and on the back would have biking tips. You know, they did the very best of Devon, Alberta, and it was called Top Gear because it all fits their biking brand. Even the town, I should say, of Devon went and did all their logos all look like this. And they started hosting bike races and bike rallies and kid events and safety classes. And I mean, it just really took off. And everywhere you went, people were in Bike Town gear. They couldn't even keep it in stock. And what's really interesting is they hadn't had a new business in their little downtown in 12 years. And within 6 months, they had Grounded Coffee House, which is all themed for bikes, and Shift Happens, which is another place, bicycle repair there. They had 4 new businesses open in their downtown for the first time in 12 years. Just because they had a brand, they had a focus. Pole banners started going up like these all over town. They did posters and they would put them in the schools and in the library and everything. That's all about their brand. And it worked. They even went and renamed their trails. There's the River Trail, Canyon Loop, Timber Trail. They did trail maps all over the place. They did a website dedicated to Bike Town, Alberta. And you know the logo gear here? They couldn't even keep it in stock. And when there was the Tour of Alberta a few years ago, when they did the Tour of Alberta, it's going to be in Edmonton, it's going to be in Red Deer, it's going to be in Calgary, it's going to be in all the big cities. They could not overlook Devon because this was their brand, their focus, and they hosted stage 2 of the Tour of Alberta. So I don't know what your tagline would be, but I think you should take it. It's an asset you already have. It's an asset you're already working on. It's an asset that you have leaders in the community that will champion. And then what you need to do is, well, what about downtown? Because and one nice thing about your trails, they all basically start and emanate in downtown. So before you hit the trail, go to Wooden Spoon and load up on whatever, lunch, you take it with you. Or when you're done at the end of the day, we might have a juice bar downtown. Or you might have bike shops downtown. And then I thought downtown, it could be food, music, a place to hang out. You know, you could promote the borscht. You could promote breakfast, lunch, and dinner downtown. You could have juice bars. You could have healthy alternatives. These people love Cliff Bars and those kinds of things. I mean, the trail meals to go, you could all do. Why not? Because if you have trails, the second thing is, how do we monetize them? And monetize is my favorite word of all time. And so I thought, all of a sudden, you know, you do like Wooden Spoon Bistro. I mean, we had lunch there yesterday. It was fantastic. And then in downtown, once you have your brand, you do the pole banners that make it look like the ones you saw in Devon. You know, they always sell a feeling. You know, that's in Appleton, Wisconsin. You need to have a focus. And so you say, okay, we're attracting people that are avid bikers. And by the way, avid bikers are the first group that say, when we're done, we want to rent an inner tube and we want to get on the river during the summer. Another reason why you can do biking is we also worked in Squamish. Squamish, timber and mining. When we worked in Whistler, we would not stay in Squamish. It was like banjo music, if you get my drift. It was like as redneck as any place ever. We lived in North Vancouver near the Capilano Suspension Bridge and commuted all the way to Whistler to work there. But now Squamish, because of the chief, it's one of the top rock climbing places in the world. 30% of their population has immigrated to Squamish from New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain. I mean, it's amazing. It is now the youngest city in Canada. They had a focus. Now, they also have biking. It is all single track, pretty extreme. But guess what else they don't have that you have? Is they have 40 days of sunshine a year. You have nearly 300. I mean, this just plays up to your best strengths, and it can work year round. So does that make sense? I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but you need to have a focus. As a community, I think you should put your hat on biking. You got it. It's here. Claim it. Own it. Because then when the world starts to see that, the word flood isn't going to be, they're going to know you for biking, not flood and recovery and empty buildings. They're going to see a different story. And if you live in Grand Forks, and heaven forbid, you go, if you have relatives or you go to Vancouver or you go to Nelson or somewhere and you say, oh, I'm from Grand Forks, what do they say? Yeah, they'll say, where's that? Or do they say, oh, I'm so sorry? See what I mean? We've heard from a lot of people that you have kind of a negative perception. The way to get over that is say, you know what? You can't say, well, you know what? We do have, our downtown is open. Or whenever you say anything, or we do not have the crime that everybody thinks we have, or we don't have this or this, all you're doing is perpetuating it. But if you say, we are BC's biking capital, all of a sudden it's a different story. People will come and they're going to go, this is pretty cool. And that's how you do it. And downtown needs to fit that audience. Healthy living, bikes, those bike shops. And I think an outfitter downtown in this town would do fantastic. Number 3. They orchestrated recruitment of critical mass or clustering. Out of the 20, this is the most important one. And I'm going to explain what this is in a minute. But it's like businesses grouped together. Yesterday, we were walking downtown, and we were on the south side of the street on Market. So I consider Market your main district for pedestrian, for retail, for tourism. And when we were doing there, we walked like 2 blocks before I could even find a business that was about retail. I mean, we had lawyers and insurance agencies and all kinds of other things there, but it was really hard to find somebody that was a retail shop or a restaurant in that first part. We did find a few. And by the way, we want the lawyers, we want the insurance agents, we want them. But what you have to do is cluster them together. So you might have an area of downtown that's more neighborhood retail. That would be where pharmacies are, where shoe repair are, things that cater to the locals more than they cater to destination visitors. Because if you go downtown Kimberly, are you going to see a whole bunch of lawyers and accountants? And yeah, they're there, but they're not in their downtown, that little street. And so here's what you need to have. If you want your downtown to be a destination and you want to recover from the floods, you need to orchestrate the business mix. In 3 lineal blocks, which is Market Street, perfect. From one end, which is where City Hall is pretty much, down to where it ends. Okay? The other direction. You need to have 10 places that sell food. They don't all have to be sit-down restaurants. So if you had soda fountain, coffee shop, and you have 2 or 3 coffee shops, bistro, you have some of these, but I don't think you have the full 10 yet. Then you need to have 10 destination retail shops, galleries, antiques, collectibles, books, all of those things. And out of those 20, here's the next one, you need to have at least half of them open after 6 o'clock. I was literally shocked when I drove into town Monday evening and I forgot my power brick to my computer. I was in panic mode. So I go to Home Hardware at 5:25. They close at 5:30. And their doors were already locked. I mean, this town closed at 5. Most towns close at 6. You need to be open until 7 or 8. And so that was a big deal. And I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. You need to have consistent hours and days in your downtown. So if you say, okay, Monday's the day we're going to take off, and most of our shops are going to be closed on Monday, be consistent. You need to be open into the evening hours. And clustering, like businesses grouped together. You will never go to a mall, a successful mall. Malls are dying, by the way. You'll never go to a successful mall and find law firms and pregnancy clinics and social services in the middle of their mall. They know they have to have like businesses grouped together. And you need to have anchor tenants. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And it's a central place. It's where we go to hang out. Think about this, antique malls. They do 10 times the business when they're grouped together. Every little booth in an antique mall is a competitor, yet they do 10 times the business when they're together. And auto malls do 7 times the sales. Why would Chevy want to be right next to Ford, Toyota, and Subaru? Because they do 7 times the business. People are always drawn to critical mass. I mean, think about it. Corner gas stations, fast food, you know, the days of having Tim Hortons and Wendy's and Giant in the Box and McDonald's on all 4 corners. Why do they do that? Because people are drawn to it. I mean, food courts, perfect example. And that's what downtown needs. So sometimes you have to orchestrate the effort. You start with the property owners, not the tenants. It only takes 1/3. And so, and many towns everywhere are restricting the use of street level businesses. I'll give you per example. One of the best towns in Western Canada is Canmore. We worked in Banff. I got to tell you, when I was growing up in the San Juan Islands, I was going to go to the Banff School of Fine Arts. Our family went up to Banff every year. But over time, Banff has become factory tourism. People go up there by the busload. They get off the bus. They shop at Roots, Starbucks, all the chains and stuff in downtown Banff. They get on their bus and they leave. They barely see the mountains. Whereas in Canmore, they created bylaws that do not allow more chains or franchises in their downtown. There is a Subway, there's a Rocky Mountain Soap Company, which is Canadian, Western Canada. There's only 6 stores. And other than that, they have stayed organic to Canmore, and they've cleaned Banff's clock. It's a better destination. It's sad for Banff, because Banff spent millions of dollars widening their sidewalks about 7 years ago. They went and did all of that. But the problem is, it's just a shopping district. And so, many also restricted chains and franchises. So we did a couple of videos, and one is called What's Included in the Perfect Business Mix and How to Recruit That Business Mix. We have a thing called the Destination Development Association. It is absolutely free. And you as businesses should join this. There are videos in there that say, here's what you can do as if you're a business. There are videos in there about how you should use TripAdvisor. There are videos, and it's absolutely free. It's destinationdevelopment.org. There's no charge, there's no catch, there's no anything. It's my life's worth of work we put into this. But if I go back to that, is this here, and I'm going to give you what you should have right now. Here is the business mix that you should have in a town of 3,500 to 5,000 residents. And by the way, your service area is not the 4,000 people that live in Grand Forks. It's your service area, which is about 10,000. But I went down to just 3,500 to 5,000. There is one for up to 10,000. But this would all work in your downtown. Now, the ones like 2 coffee shops in yellow, you already have them. Bakery and breakfast house, you already have them. Grocery, specialty foods, you already have them. Home improvement hardware, you already have that downtown. I don't know. I know you have at least one Home Accents and Decor, which is really a great shop. Maybe you need another one. 2 delis, lunch spots you already have. The ones in bold are the ones that would fit in your downtown right now. So pet grooming, gift supplies, all these people. You know what? The other thing I saw when I drove in town is I can't believe the number of trailers and RVs cruising into this town. Even the people that live here own them. And a lot of these people, one thing we like about RVs and trailers, and I happen to own a travel trailer. And you know what? Number one, they can take stuff with them. Number two is a lot of times they bring pets. You have dog parks. You're set up for this stuff. So pet grooming, gifts, supplies, that's all pet gifts, pet supplies. An outfitter would be fantastic in your downtown. A garden store would do really great. Fastest growing hobby in North America is gardening and biking, recreational biking. Ice cream shop, confectionery with fudge would do well. A microbrew or 2 would do well. 6 sit-down restaurants. I mean, all of these would work. You need to go recruit them, though. And there's a video on even how to do that because I don't have time to do that this morning. You need to rearrange. You have a lot of empty buildings, and I'm saying please don't repurpose with what was in there. Here's what I want you to do. Now, any business that was kind of forced out of downtown, we don't want any business in Grand Forks to go away. But you have many other streets in your downtown where you can put your neighborhood retail and keep Market Street, make it your destination retail district. I mean, I could go into this one, and I'm not, but there's Canmore, population 14,000. By the way, they were a mining town up until the 1988 Calgary Olympics. And then they got the Nordic Center there, and it totally changed them. They went from industry to tourism. And you may say, oh, tourism, why do we want to do tourism? Well, guess what? It's worked for them. Did you know there are more surgeons that work in Calgary live in Canmore, and now they have medical people coming from Calgary to Canmore for their care because that's where their medical professionals live. There are more people that have summited Mount Everest live in Canmore than any other city or town in the world. The Alpine Club of Canada, it's not in Calgary, it's in Canmore. I mean, look at that. They're an hour and a quarter from Calgary. Yeah, they're 30 minutes from Banff, but their focus is food, recreation, and healthy living. And in their downtown, 30 restaurants and eateries, 30 destination. And their street is about the same length as, it's probably a little bit longer than Market Street. Number 4, they each had anchor tenants. That's, if we're cruising through Grand Forks on the highway, what do you have that would get me to pull off and go 2 blocks to downtown? What's the anchor tenant that everybody knows when you're driving through town, you got to stop here? Okay, well, and then, I mean, this is in Jacksonville, Wyoming. All those people there, they're sitting on saddles. That's the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. And people go there, we have to go to the $1 Million Cowboy Bar and sit on those saddles. You saddle up to the bar, literally. And it works. It's an anchor tenant, makes you worth the special trip. You need 1 or 2 of them. There's the saddle. That's pointing at the saddle, not her rear. And you need to promote them specifically. And so, you know what? You must only have 1 or 2 anchor tenants in your downtown. I mean, how many of you would go to Orlando if Disney World was not there? You're a mean bunch. You just insulted 171 other attractions, but they all know that Disney is the anchor tenant. And while we're there, we're going to go to Universal Studios, SeaWorld, Wild Kingdom, all those other things. We're working in a little town of Parowan, Utah, population 1,100. Their downtown is about a mile, so sorry speaking miles, about a mile off of Interstate 15, which goes between Salt Lake City and Las Vegas. And they have this little place there that makes incredible cinnamon rolls. The best cinnamon rolls in the West. And that was said by a television station in Salt Lake City, 3.5, 4 hours away. So it was a third-party endorsement. Remember, you have to be different or you better be the best. So they got that endorsement. So they said, next exit, turn left. And they put these billboards out there, and it totally changed everything. As a matter of fact, they now have 7 places that sell cinnamon rolls, all with a different variety. And they said, we hoped we could get 1 in 2,500 cars would stop. They're getting 1 in 250 cars stopping. They put out cinnamon rolls 6 in the morning. They were out by 6:20. And all of a sudden, they open up new businesses, everything. Totally changed the town because of cinnamon rolls. So you have one. You're right. That place was packed. Yesterday, we had businesses say, we can't make it downtown. We're barely hanging on and stuff. Yet, they don't seem to be having a problem, so we know businesses can work downtown. And Amber, you have business right next door, right? Does a wooden spoon help or hurt your business?
Help.
That's why you need anchor tenants, because once we're there, once we get out of our cars, 4 times greater chance of getting people to spend money. Then what you do is give them incentive to walk the couple of blocks. But they're one. We had lunch here yesterday. It was awesome. People love best ofs. 15 small town bakeries. I mean, you'll always see this and this and this, and you'll always see best ofs. People love those. And so I'm going to go to this. I want you to create a brochure. This is Alpena, Michigan. Population is 10,000. It's a brochure this size. One of the most important brochures you could create for Grand Forks is the very best of Grand Forks. It's the most important brochure. This is the one for Alpena. They designed it, but they were so afraid of the politics of somebody saying, you promoted them and you didn't promote me, and I think I'm just as good as them, which would never happen here. They even used a quote from me. As a matter of fact, I did the list for them because they would not get past the politics. And so this is what they did. Great Lake, they're on the sunrise shore of Lake Michigan. These are all little local shops. And by the way, I'm going to tell you how they did this. And by the way, if you want one of these, Amber, you let me know. I'll send you some of them. I'll send you samples from Bracebridge, Ontario. There's dozens of these out there. But if you do this, and by the way, each one of these was asked to participate. Art in the Loft, the Besser Museum, and by the way, they each paid $400 for their panel. This is a public-private partnership. So I know a lot of you are saying, oh, great, now another $400 to be in this. But I'm going to tell you the result in a minute. But the Besser Museum was really, really struggling. There's no way they had. There was enough money from everybody else to cover their cost except for $200. And so what they did with this brochure is they took this brochure and they put it in a number 10 envelope, regular envelope like this, and it had a little card with it. And the card said this, and I'm paraphrasing, the number 1 reason people travel is to visit friends and family. We hope that you will hang on to this brochure so that when friends and family visit you, you will share with them the very best of what Grand Forks has to offer. Because we believe that every dining room table should be a concierge desk. Within days, people would come downtown with this brochure and they go, oh my gosh, I got this in the mail. How long have you been here? And the mercer would go, 10 years. I wonder how many people in Grand Forks have no clue what you even have in your downtown. Because what they do is they get off work on Friday and they head straight to Castlegar or Trail or somewhere else to spend their money. One of the biggest problems you have in Grand Forks is leakage, locally earned money being spent somewhere else. If you're a business and you leak out more than you bring in, you die as a town and as a business. So here's the criteria they use, and you can develop your own. Number 1, they had to be highly regarded by somebody other than themselves. So 80% plus positive reviews on TripAdvisor, on Yelp, written up in BC Magazine or regional publications. That was one criteria. They needed to have good curb appeal. It made you want to walk into their business. They needed to be open year-round. In Alpena, they had a challenge with businesses that were not open year-round. They had to be open till at least 6. I would have said 8, but they would have had an empty brochure. They were like you. Actually, they closed later than you closed. And they had to be open at least 6 days a week. And they had to be unique to you. So that means we don't put Subway in there, we don't put Dairy Queen in there, we don't put A&W in there. Even for John, I don't know if we'd even put the Source in there. But because once we come downtown, we're going to see the Source, and I would come to, if I had a trailer or something and I need electronics, as a matter of fact, he was the first person I called about a power brick. There's a Source there, we got to call him. But it doesn't mean that we're ignoring him or that he doesn't count, but most of the people that are coming in as visitors could find a Source back at home. But at least once they're downtown, they're going to know there is one. And he has two great opportunities right next to him on both sides. So for Grand Forks, you should promote your top 6 eateries, your top 6 retail shops, your top 7 activities, which might be, here's our top 3 kid-family or family-friendly trails. Here is the top 7 activities, your top 3 attractions, which might be the gallery, the Doukhobor Museum, those kinds of things. And that's what should be in there. And you cannot let politics do it. And by the way, you notice there's no lodging in there. Because we want your lodging to hand this out without their competitors being in there. The most asked question of a visitor in the world at a front desk to a hotel, B&B, you name it, is, where's a good place to eat? And please don't hand me a list. Am I right? Where's a good place to eat? Wouldn't it be great if you say, well, you know what? Here's a brochure, the very best of Grand Forks. And by the way, if you put in the top ones and say, by the way, if you've eaten at all of those, go to our website and we've got 4 more. If you, go ahead.
I'm the smallest place in town and I send out 10 families a day.
I know, and I mean, that's just the power of it. But you wouldn't want to promote something that has all your competitors in there. So you're promoting what could be beneficial to your customers, your guests. And so this is, everywhere we've done this, when we did this in Bracebridge, Ontario, their sales skyrocketed. Because if we stop anywhere at the Visitor Information Center, we're cruising through town, we're on our way wherever we're going, wouldn't it be great? The first rule in tourism is how do we get people to stop? This is the best way to do it. And number one reason they stop is washrooms. Really is, washrooms. But if you can get them to stay 2 hours spending doubles, just 2 hours. So it's not just getting gas and DQ. It's actually spending 2 hours. It doubles. If you can get them to spend the night 4 times. So the goal is overnight, but if you can't get them to stop, you're not going to get them to spend the night. And if you do get them to spend the night, it's a pit stop. They're on their way and they're tired. Let's just stay here. We'll crash here. We'll get up in the morning and leave. Make sense? So, people love must-do activities. The top 3 things you need to see and do. Okay? Anchor tenants. Lease agreements include, and by the way, if you get people down to Wooden Spoon and, what's the name of the little home accent shop? What's that? Yes, that is fantastic. And even you have a couple coffee shops. I mean, you've got some anchor tenants downtown. You need to put them front and center, and everybody will benefit. When we go to the mall, whenever you go to a mall, the ones that are still operating and doing well, we go there for the anchor tenants. And while we're there, we're going to go into Hallmark, we're going to go into the Source, we're going to go to those cell phone dealers, all those little people. They all benefit from the anchor tenants. That's what you need to know. Number 5, your property owners need to include their operating hours. Look at that. There you go. 70% of all consumer retail spending takes place after 6 p.m. 70%. Okay, I want to make sure everybody can read that. You know, things have changed. So if we're here and we want to go downhill skiing, or we want to go mountain biking, or we're here for hunting, whether it's deer, birds, you name it, or we're here to fish, or we're at Christina Lake to play golf, or we're here to just bike all of your family-friendly trails, or if we're at work during the day, whether it's at one of the factories, one of the mills, whether we teach, whether we work at a medical clinic, or whether we're at school, or professional service, we do all that during the day. and your farmer's market happens at 8 to like 10 in the morning when everybody's at work or at school? I mean, and then they're off work and you wonder why they're driving to Castlegar where the nearest Walmart is. Because they're open and you're not. I mean, I just don't even know what to tell you about that. You know, in Europe, they actually do siestas. And in Mexico and other places where they actually close from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. But what happened is that, by the way, that statistic, you know what I know that came from? It came from the National Retail Federation, of which all these people belong. All of these stores, I mean, Walgreens used to be just like 9 to 5, Safeway, I mean, there's Tim Hortons, McDonald's, I mean, all of these are open 24 hours or they're open, you know, open till 9 o'clock at night. People have shifted and your retail hasn't. You close at 5, not even 6. You don't even give us a chance after work. You know, and by the way, there's another big danger out there, and that is hobby businesses. That's the worst thing that could ever happen in a downtown. By the way, if you sign a lease at a mall, it will say, you will open at 10 a.m. If you're not open by 10:05, it's $1,000 for every 5 minutes you open late. Where's the nearest mall? Kelowna? So you go up to Kelowna, and here's my question for you. If some of their stores opened at 8, 9, 10, and 11 in the morning, would you go there before 11 or would you wait till they're all open? If they closed at 5, 6, 7, when would you go there? Probably on Saturday or Sunday when you're not working because the rest of the time you can't get there, right? But so it has to be consistent. One business staying open later is not going to do it. They can't do it by themselves. You know, I mean, all these things, appointment, I mean, this is in your downtown, 1 to 5, Tuesday through Friday. I'm going, really? Really? Your property owners have to control that. Now, what I would do is I would do this. I would start with Fridays and Saturdays for the next 3 years. Just do that. It will take about 3 months before your locals even realize you're open after 6. It takes a while for locals to get in the mindset that, gee, I wonder what's going on downtown tonight. Okay? And so that's really important. When it comes to public markets, now, I don't have any problem with the public market being, I saw it, was it yesterday morning? Yesterday morning, they were out there, they're on the highway. I would love to see them also do an evening market right on Market Street. 2. Public markets should be in the heart of the spending district. This is Sparks, Nevada. This is a public market. It first started on Thursdays from 1 to 3, and about 500 people would show up. Then they ran it from 1 to 7, and it went up to 1,000 because now they had lunch and dinner. And then they started adding entertainment, Native American, well, Aboriginals. They started adding other entertainment there, and they now runs from 2 in the afternoon till 10 o'clock at night, and the average attendance at their farmers market, their public market, is 10,000. Your public market needs to be open after people are off of work. And so there's even a video in the library that tell you how to do it. Using shared workers, there's all kinds of programs to how to do this. But just do Fridays and Saturdays, particularly in your peak season. If you have people coming here for biking and everything and they can't spend any money because you're closed, they're not going to spend the night. They're just going to move on to what's next. Nobody wants to go back to their hotel room and watch TV because the town closed. Number 6, people living or staying in downtowns is big. So doing upper level lofts in downtowns is huge, growing, one of the fastest growing segments. I mean, former schools, warehouses, office buildings, all of these things are turning into really cool condos. And this, by the way, these upper story lofts are not millennials, they're boomers. Boomers are empty nesters. They don't need even millennials, when they have kids, want to live where they have a yard, their kids can go out and play, those kinds of things. But the boomers and creative types love these kind of funky outdoor lofts, artisans. These could be live workplaces, huge. And that brings me to a subject that I think is going to be really important for Grand Forks. I search the web and I read articles. Low to moderate income housing you should absolutely have. Let me tell you what the difference is. Low mod income housing, if you want to live there, you must have a job that's at least 30 hours a week. Your job is verified every 90 days, and if you lose your job, you have 120 days to vacate the premises. That is good. What is an absolute travesty, and you should in no way even consider this in Grand Forks, is low income or no income housing. Now, I have to tell you that I get disappointed when I see the province marching into town and building low income housing, because what they're trying to do is disperse the low income, no income, the challenged people out into the rural communities. Now, I understand these are human beings, and I really understand that. But here is why you need to say no. And by the way, developers will come to you, and the reason they will come into Grand Forks and buy an old hotel is because they can buy it for pennies on the dollar and flip it into low-income housing and make a bigger profit than they can in Vancouver or where there's the social infrastructure to take care of the people that you're bringing in. Here is the problem. The reason I say no to this in Grand Forks is because you do not have the capacity to care for these people. It has to be more than housing. They have to be fed. As a matter of fact, you don't have the social, you need to have jobs for them. You need to have physical therapy if they're physically disabled in some way. You may need to have mental wellness programs for them. You may need to have added security because now you have to police them. You may need, if they're disadvantaged people and they've got kids that are challenged, now all of a sudden your educational institution has to bring in more specialists and things like that. You'll need job training for them. What if they don't have a car? Where's your transportation system? You as a community cannot afford to do this. What I say in speaking engagements is the communities that can handle this are 40,000 or bigger. That's generally where you have the social infrastructure to take care of the people you're bringing in. Otherwise, you end up with just homeless camps and a bad reputation and no tourism, and even your locals say, I don't want to be, we don't want to be a sanctuary city and all that. So I beg you not to go down this path. Okay? And I understand, but I just think that this is really important. But that there is you can't afford it. You know what? If I was in Grand Forks, I would make downtown in your commercial real estate my number one priority, not low-income housing. Because wouldn't it be great if the values in your downtown went up to help take the tax burden off of you as residents? Do that. That stops leakage of locally or money spent somewhere else. It increases visitor spending because you are eventually going to go to Kelowna, to the mall, or you're going to go to Castlegar, you're going to go to Spokane or wherever. We know that's going to happen. Tourism is the purest form of economic development. People come, spend money, and go home. It helps fill that gap. But when you do that, you better have tens of millions of dollars in your budget to do everything that comes with it. And I don't think this town can afford that. So that's just from what I read and heard. Number 7, all downtowns always have pioneers with patient money. These are people that are willing to invest in their downtown. This is a guy named Richard Mason. Him and his wife Vertus took the little downtown El Dorado, Arkansas. Somebody came up to me yesterday saying, Roger, have you worked in towns that are worse than Grand Forks? I'm going, are you joking? Look around you. 360 degrees. Look what you've got here. As a matter of fact, when you drive through Grand Forks, it's beautiful on the highway. I mean, you know what? You know what I saw about Grand Forks is that you might be one of the more frustrated communities we've worked with, but your assets far outweigh. Most of your homes are well taken care of. I mean, this is easy. I always say this is a piece of cake compared to real challenged communities. But in El Dorado, they were an oil town and they were dying. And Richard and Vertus Mason, they just bought up a lot of downtown. And they started making it all about music. They put in all the awnings that you see. I mean, they did all of these. They actually went out and handpicked the businesses to go in their downtown. They gave them sweetheart leases to get them in, the Old Town Store. They did everything they could to make downtown great because it was worse off than Grand Forks is today, a year after the flood. And they had like 70% vacancies. I mean, they just went through, notice the awnings there, the lights, they added all of those. I mean, this is their little bakery and coffee shop. And by the way, those are the kind of awnings I'd like to see you have rather than those big old monstrosities you have on Market Street. These are much better, give you a nice visual. You can put lighting under there. You can hang signs up there. And by the way, we love color. Everything doesn't have to be beige, brown, and gray. So these are the kinds of things that they did. This is inside that coffee shop, that little bistro. And this place, and I took these on an early morning, so that's you don't see tons of people in there. But it just shines what they have done. They have a theater in their downtown like you do. It's singles, and they actually have plays now going on in there. They started doing outdoor cafes. I mean, and now people are driving 2 and 3 hours to go there because their downtown is the draw. I mean, it just turned this town around, and they went music whole hog. They built a big amphitheater right in the middle of their downtown. And they have huge name entertainment. Go to El Dorado, which was a dying oil town 10 years ago. They did the whole thing in 7 years. And then CNN and everybody said America's best small town comebacks in El Dorado. I'm not going to find it on this list, but El Dorado was on that list of best downtown comebacks. It's amazing what they did. So it does take some patient money. And I know one of the things you have is you have a lot of people in your downtown right now that can't even get past their insurance agencies. And that's really sad. And that's why for them, in here, it's taken ultra patient money, am I right? It's taken ultra, but that's what it takes. And by the way, did you notice all 400 of them had that? Number 8, they started with 1 block. And so for you may say, well, I'm not sure. We might do City Hall. We're going to go down just 2 blocks to start. And that's just why I say Mark Street. By the way, we're not discounting the rest of downtown. But I'm saying Market Ave, if we say, let's start with Market Ave, and then we hope we'll spread it up 2nd, maybe 3rd, up some of your other streets would be fantastic. We're working in a place called Black Butte Ranch. Black Butte Ranch is in Central Oregon. There's Portland up there, and here's Boise, Idaho there, and there is Bend, Oregon there, but right there is Sisters, Oregon. Black Butte Ranch, we couldn't do any retail. Remember, the number one activity of visitors, not the reason we come, the number one complimentary activity is shopping, dining, entertainment. We could do no downtowns in Black Butte. So we had to rely on Sisters, Oregon. And so we went into Sisters, Oregon, which is, their downtown is about the size of yours, but their main street is along the highway. And so we went in their downtown, we did a Western motif. This is just gingerbread on the front of buildings. But we reorchestrated the business mix. We moved the neighborhood retail over block. We actually did real estate exchanges. We said, you know what, your business would be better suited over here. You have a lot of service businesses and social service businesses in your downtown because it's cheap, not because it's the best place they should be. And by the way, when it comes to homeless shelters and those things, the last thing you ever want with that is in your downtown or on your main highway. Because you'll chase people away. And no offense, but it's true. And so we reorchestrated, and we just did that 10-10-10 in their downtown. We started with one block, and we just made it shine. And you know what happened is, we picked the one block where the property owners are most willing to play with us. That's the block you pick. You go to the property owners, will you help us orchestrate the business mix? Downtown must be a public-private partnership, which means the city will do its part or the town will do its part, but the property owners need to do their part. It can't be one or the other. And so you do that. And by the way, Sisters, Oregon, population 1,100, has the highest per capita retail sales of any city in the state of Oregon. Yes.
That's also due to the fact that once a year, for one day a year in July, they have quilters come.
Oh, it's
Tens
huge.
of thousands of quilters.
Yes.
Go from one day in July.
Yeah.
And they come from all over the world to do this.
Yes.
I've
So,
been there during that time. It's
yeah,
phenomenal.
it's amazing. But it's a great, now you can rent these little Surreys that have GPSs on them and tell you how to scout around. And now Sister's gone down the side streets. I mean, it is an amazing destination. Town of 1,100. And by the way, their setting looks an awful lot like Grand Forks. They're on the same kind of highway. They're so much like you. I just said, oh my gosh. But they're a quarter of your population. I mean, how cool is that? So all of these that you just saw are driven by your property owners. Now, it doesn't mean the property owners are going to get together and do a plan. That's what you do as a public sector. But they need to be at the table. They control who's in their businesses, what hours they open and close. And then you need to find these things. These are the things where the property owners must be at the table. Okay? Now, there you go. Start with one block. That's it. Next, here's where the town of Grand Forks needs to be at the table. This is the public sector. Parking. I've heard, oh, what are we going to do about parking? We can't get employees to park anywhere else. And I mean, I heard all this parking stuff. I never saw it as an issue. And if it was an issue, that'd be a good issue to have. I think it's more of a fallacy than an issue. But in a downtown, you need to have at least 4-hour parking. And this is, right now, you don't have parking limits. And I'm glad. But I've seen too many cities do 2-hour parking. And people say, well, I can't go to a movie and eat dinner in 2 hours. And so they're forced to leave. And so if you insist on 2-hour parking down the road, where can we find all-day parking? Your biggest challenge, see, I love this, parking all day, go straight left, right, or 2-hour parking right here. But parking doesn't even have to be free. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because right now, I think it's not a big issue. It just has to be worth the walk. Here's the thing, is with parking. And the biggest problem that you have in Grand Forks, there you go, revenues should be invested back into it. We're not going to go into this. I love the fact on one side of the street, on Market, you do have angle in parking. Angle in parking increases spending more than 20%. And so, how many of you have ever said, oh, good, parallel parking? Angle in parking, we can pull in quick. We can make a last-minute decision. Angle and parking, is this worth the hassle of angle and parking? This is why they're teaching cars how to parallel park themselves now. And so this is really important. But you know what I saw? You know what the biggest problem is in Grand Forks is you have no signage telling us where there is public parking. You have signs on the highway that say RV parking this way. You turn, and the next thing you know, you're hitting the mountains back at the States. Because it doesn't terminate. It doesn't say, here it is, you've arrived. You just say, go that way, good luck. Your problem isn't that you don't have parking. Your problem is that nobody knows where it is. We don't know whether we can park at Dollarama or whether that's public or private or whether, we don't know. Are our cars going to be towed? I mean, we don't know. There's no signs. And so, by the way, if you we believe in sidewalk cafes where you take away a couple parking spaces to extend your sidewalks out there. I'm going to show you some examples. But if you ever have anybody come up to you and say, you take away the parking, you're going to kill my business. Here's what you tell them. Or we say, we need more parking. Here's what you say. Are you telling me your business isn't worth walking 2 blocks for? Shuts them up just like that. But let me give you a statistic. The average shopper at Walmart parks 210 feet. I don't know what that is in meters. Probably, what is that, 80 or 90 meters. But you know what? They park 210 feet from the front door. So they're way out here. They will walk all the way to the store, and they'll walk all the way to the back to buy DVD or Blu-ray. They just walked 2 blocks. It just has to be worth it. The average person at a mall parks more than that away from the front door. But it must be worth the walk. The average visitor to Disney will walk 4 blocks just to catch the tram that takes you to Disney World or Disneyland. You know, the whole thing about this, it's not true. But you do need signage to tell me where I can park. If it's full and we don't know, guess what we do? We come right back on the highway and we leave. That's signage.
I think that parking lot where they're trying to put the low-income housing on 2nd Street is a huge opportunity. Like, my business is a brand new business, and I'm right across the street from it. And just with the change in weather, people pull their RVs in there because it's a huge empty parking lot. There's no lines. They're like, sweet, I can get in there easy.
Yeah.
They walk over, they ask to use my bathroom, and then they start wandering down and looking for everything else. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just, the easier you make it, oh, no question, the easier you make it, the more money people will spend in this town. Yeah. And that brings me, thank you for the segue, I should put washrooms. Public washrooms is that, and I did this, and my wife goes, oh my gosh, I love that place. We actually made that up, obviously. But there's a town in Texas called Sulphur Springs. And in Sulphur Springs, Texas, their downtown is about 3 miles, so, a kilometer and some, off the highway. And they did a cool thing. They got these restrooms, and this is actually a different one. But this is a restroom right there. It's not much bigger than like an old telephone booth. It's probably about this size right here in this corner. And there it is. It's got all that mirrored glass on it. That's it from the outside. That's it from the inside. It's one-way glass. How many of you would have the courage to use that washroom? Guess what? It totally revitalized their downtown. They put billboards that said, clean, spotless restrooms. They built 2 of them for $60,000. It totally revitalized their downtown. Now, they do have lights on the outside there. You can see chest set over there. They have so that at night, there always has to be more light on the outside than on the inside. So I don't know, if you're using it and the power goes out, you might be in trouble. But my whole point is, you know what? There you go. There's a men's room for you. Yeah, you like that there? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. But here's one thing I want you to do. There should never be any business in Grand Forks that put up signs like that. Ever. You know what that says? Go away. Instead, what you need to do, isn't that cute? There's a little sign right on the door, right here. Never say no, tell me where I could go. Once you get people to stop and get out of their cars, you have a 4 times greater chance of getting them to spend money. Public washrooms, number 1. It's the best economic development tool for tourism on the planet. What's that?
you need to tell Nelson that.
Yeah, I know.
Nelson to save your life.
Yeah, I know. And I've actually have talked to him about that. They go down to the resort on the lake.
It's called the Portland New.
Yes, they got a food there now.
Yes. Yeah, they just put that in. Yeah, Portland Loo makes these portable ones. They're pretty cool. But put them where people can spend money. Remember, once people get out of their cars, they'll go to retail shops, but if they have to get back in there, I heard somebody said yesterday that at one point there was an idea of putting visitor information out on the west side of town out there somewhere. And I went, no, visitor information should be right smack in the middle of your spending district. Once people get out of their cars, keep them out of their cars so they can spend more money. And so the last thing you ever want is, I saw this in Ireland. Now there's gross out for you. But wherever you have public washrooms, you should also have visitor information. When you're at home, where do you do most of your reading? But this is in a little town in Washington State called Gig Harbor by Tacoma. And you can see right outside the public washroom, this is all their public washroom. Right there, they have their local brochures and everything that promote tourism. There it is. Great economic development tool. And number 11, this is how you get downtown back. So critical mass and this are the two most important of all 20. Okay? What comes first in a downtown is people hanging out downtown first. It's not retail. Build it and they will come. No. And by the way, I read in these that there were people that said we should close off the street to traffic in downtown. No. You do that when it's so busy you have no other choice. If you closed off Market Street or Market Ave right now to vehicle traffic and made it all pedestrian, it would die. Because the business mix hasn't changed at all. Now, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, yeah, we'd want you to do that. But you do it when you're so busy that you have no choice. And so, if you can make downtown the place to hang out, it will change everything. Across the country, in the US and in Canada, we're moving to the European standard. We want places to hang out. We're building piazzas, plazas. This is Main Street Square in Rapid City. It's a bigger city, but I just wanted to tell you what happened there. This is a public parking lot with 65 spaces in it. That was a Sears building and pigeons were living in it. I mean, it was bad shape. We told the city, we want you to tear down the Sears building and take that parking lot. We don't even care if you make up the parking. I want you to turn it into a plaza. It's right smack in the middle of their downtown. This is it before. And by the way, there is a parking structure back here. We want to add a third story of the parking structure, not to give us this parking, but because in this parking, we put in public restrooms, public visitor information, and we had storage. We were losing some of the first floor for this plaza. This is it before, that's it after. It totally changed their downtown forever. And by the way, that Sears building, it didn't get torn down. I got a call from a guy named Ray Hillebrand. He goes, Roger, my name's Ray Hillebrand. I own a lot of property in downtown Rapid City. You wanted us to tear down that Sears building, but I just want to let you know it's not going anywhere because I just bought it. But I also gave the city $2 million to build that plaza next to my new building. He is getting $60 a square foot per month for the businesses and restaurants in his building, which is twice of what the rest of downtown is getting. Smart investment. But somewhere in your downtown, and by the way, all of a sudden, car shows, everybody started coming in with events, quilt shows, you name it, they all started coming to Rapid City, and the plaza is like right off the end of this photograph, but all of a sudden, everybody started coming there. Now, here's what makes it work. They have a splash pad. That splash pad is about the size of this. Here's a mistake that was made in Grand Forks. Your splash pad is not where anybody can spend any money. I'm not saying, because I love that park, by the way. But if you ever had a choice of adding another one in your spending district where it could be monetized, I would urge you to do it. So that splash pad, by the way, it's all flush mounted, so you can shut them off. You can put tables and chairs there. That runs 120 days a year. Okay? And then this is what it looks like in the summer. They've got this round area. All of these things light up. You can see their stage there. There's that Sears building. Even over here, there's another hotel that's over there. It is, keep going, right over there. That's called the Alex Johnson Hotel. It was only the first 4 floors were open. The rest of it was just defunct. It is now running at 97% occupancy and totally restored. This is Main Street Square during the summer months. This is it in the winter months. 120 days of splash pad, 120 days of ice. That is 8,000 square feet, so it's half the size of a hockey rink. It is bigger than the one in Rockefeller Center. That's 240 days of activity in your downtown. I mean, it changed everything. And even at night, the splash pad has higher pressure, and kids don't go running out there, but they have music piped into it, and it runs for about 20 minutes. And you know what's really interesting about Rapid City? Before they did this, the average student, when they graduated from high school, said, the second I graduate, I'm blowing this town. But after they built Main Street Square, by the way, that's movie night on the square, their average attendance is 3,500. Now, this is a bigger city. Small, it's about half the size of Kelowna. But look what somebody wrote in social media. I grew up in Rapid City. It was never as cool as it is now. So what comes first for a downtown is get people to hang out there, and you will have no vacancies. Where people hang out, retailers follow. I mean, this is what we wanted to do in Edmonton on White Ave, which is Old Strathcona. But I want to show you how simple it can be. All you need is a space, but I want you to look at the space. Now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 food trucks there. But look at the space. Look at the space there. You know what you see here? We see, here's a wire reel. Look at, these are stacked pallets. Look at the landscaping. Even the trees are just borrowed from a local nursery. They're still in their pots. And you can buy those trees. But look at this. See, look at what they're sitting on. They did this entire thing for less than $10,000. And they can move the pallets around. They can move, and all they do is reimagine it. So this one doesn't have a splash pad, it doesn't have an ice rink, but it's a place for locals to hang out. All you need is a cool surface. It needs to not be asphalt. It can be paver stones like this or paver stones like this. Water can go through them. I mean, these are the things you could do. And then you put tables and chairs. This is in Missoula, Montana. You know, and so the secret sauce is programming. Here's the deal. I came into town, I see signs for a demolition derby, you're having a car show this weekend, and I saw other events happening here. You know, it's the same group of people trying to do every single event. If I add up all your farmers market days, all your events, how many days a year do you think they take? 40? Is that fair? Including farmers markets. 100. You're still 150 days short of sustaining a retailer. Because if you bring people 100, and some of your days aren't even in downtown, some of these under days. But the point is, if you want a business to be sustainable, you need activity, not events. There's a video in the library that says move from events to activities. You want people to hang out downtown. A perfect example is Nelson. You'll find buskers there 365 days a year. Even in the Kootenay Rockies, where it's below freezing. It's where people go to hang out. And so, people first, retail will follow. Even putting things like these chess sets. And you may say, yeah, but the pieces aren't missing. This is actually Asheville, North Carolina, and sometimes pieces would missing. You know where they found them? Birds' nests. Birds were taking them. But they went to the manufacturer and they said, we're going to send you a whole bag full of seconds. So that if some pieces are missing, you just go in your bag and get some replacement pieces. But we've seen cities they go get donated. A local bank, a local organization will donate 3 foosball tables and they put them out. So if you had a place downtown in Grand Forks, this is in downtown New York City. They have ping pong tables inside the Indianapolis, Indiana airport. If you create a place for people to come and hang out, you will have and by the way, this is about locals. You're a service area of 10,000. What do we need to do to get the 10,000 people that we're there downtown to come and hang out in our downtown one day a month?
Basketball hoops.
Basketball can work. I mean, here's bocce ball. I mean, yoga classes during the summer months, and you get a yoga instructor. Or you do Zumba, the big new hot craze is Zumba, or Tai Chi. Or you go get these, what do you call them? Oh, come on, why is it? Jenga blocks. These are like this tall. And they're like $80. Okay, 150 Canadian. No, just kidding. But they're and you get people to donate them. This is called Imagination Playground. All those blue blocks are like Lincoln Logs, but they're made out of foam. So you get a few sets of those. These could all be donated by philanthropists. You put out a billboard or a sandwich board that says the Jenga blocks sponsored by Save On Foods. Or you bring in Imagination Playground, sponsored by The Source. See, John, there you go. And so, even this is in Whistler. Whistler does more business in the summer than it does in the winter. And it's a ski resort. This is where a vendor brings this in and sets it up for a couple of weeks. You could bring in chainsaw carvers. You could bring in potters and potter's wheels and kilns. And they're selling the pottery and people can learn how to do this stuff. So what you need is just a space that you can activate. And then you bring in the little food trucks and the trailers.
Would you say Gyro Park is conjunction to this space, or is it too far off to mark it up?
It's a little too far off, but I've got a better space for you. I'm going to show you in a minute. So, but you could bring in kiosks like these. These are in New York City in Bryant Park. These are actually made in Ottawa. Or actually they're made in Quebec. So anyway, I mean, these are just things you could do. This is Granville Island. I talk about a place to hang out. It's the Troll Under the Bridge, if you've been to Granville. Now, they close early, which is their one challenge, and they're not in the spending district, but it still creates life there. But doing public markets, inviting high school kids out, I mean, all of this kind of activity can happen. This is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, big, huge city. But these houses come apart and they just put one up at Christmas. So it's just about having a place that you can activate. This is a public market where they have all of this, all the flowers and pots are all for sale. But back to Rapid City, this here is a beer garden. So in Rapid City, they have their plaza in their downtown. Now, their population is a lot bigger. It's 80,000. But their beer garden alone brings in $240,000 a year. This funds itself with sponsors, with 10% of the sale of food trucks comes back to the organization that's doing this. But this is the future of downtowns, is doing stuff like this. Can you do it? You just project. You got lots of buildings that are just blank on the side. They make perfect projection screens for movies. But all this kind of stuff can happen. I would rather see you spend your time on activities than special events. And I have nothing against special events. I just know that you can work all day. You can work all year on one event. And it's not enough to revitalize downtown. These tables and chairs, by the way, there's a table there, and there's 4 chairs in the umbrella. $180 on Overstock.com. And you say sponsored by such and such bank, or sponsored by the county, or sponsored by, you always give benefit to the people that are providing these for you. So the days of taking parking lots and turning them into plazas like this and like this is what's happening everywhere. And the other thing I would do is I'd add street trees. You know what I love about the highway is all those trees. It's just absolutely stunning. And you need to do those. And by the way, this is in Blaine, Washington. They did an experiment. They added street trees every 10 meters on one block. And then they watched the retail sales in that block versus other blocks went up 18% just by adding trees, no other changes. So the whole thing is, how do you get people downtown 250 days a year? Splash pad, 120 days, ice rink, portable ice rink. You could even rent them. Another 120 days. I mean, it'll bring your retailers back. It'll keep them older later in the evening because your main plaza hours are 4 to 9. 4 to 9. It's where we go after work and downtown's about where we go after working on weekends. It makes your downtown the heart and soul of the community. It builds a true sense of community. It attracts young families back town. It will increase retail spending. It will drive tourism, subsequent spending. Because if you don't hang out in your downtown, neither will visitors. They go where you go. And if that's where you're going, they're going to follow you. I mean, it works. This is in Waterloo, Ontario. That's a parking lot. That's before. That's after. They did not make up the parking. You can see there's parking over there, but they did not make up that parking. Shoppers Drug Mart at first went, are you kidding? That's a mall back in there. So they took away the parking and they went from that to that. And then there's a concert happening there. There it is at night. It totally changed everything in Waterloo. There's ice. I mean, it just made all the difference in the world. So, here's Market Avenue. I fell in love with this spot. It's gravel. This is where the paper is. And so I just thought, man, I would love to see it right smack in the middle. I thought, could we close off a side street? Could we? But I don't see it down here where this is Dollarama, I think. I just didn't see it right there. And I kept going, right here would be really cool. But then can you open things up on that? I'm not too sure, but because over here, this is where the paper is, right? Is this right? But over here, the guy that has a little photographic show in there. That is a cool space. And then, by the way, the bakery is right over here, and he's creating a little back patio. I even thought, could this kind of open up? Could you? I think CIBC is here, so I went, if this was a restaurant, so you could open up the side. But then there's another building over here. Maybe that could open up onto the plaza. But I thought, even if it was the back half or part of it, I just thought somewhere in your downtown, you need to have an activity space. Now, John over there, even this little space, I thought, oh my gosh. And we had this conversation yesterday. I'd get that fountain going again, or you could turn it into a planter. People love water. I'd get that fountain going. I'd put a restaurant there. I'd put a restaurant right here, and then fill us full of tables and chairs. It'd be awesome. Just awesome. And by the way, those restaurants, they take care of their tables and chairs. So you might have, like, for this little restaurant or eatery, whatever would go over here, you might have red umbrellas. And for this restaurant, they have yellow umbrellas so that the servers know where the dividing line is. And you know what? Even though he says, well, I'm not in the food business. I have the source, right? But you know what? He's going to get all the business because he's right smack between them. So anytime they need anything that's electronics or anything, they're going to know he's there. But even little places like that. So that was my suggestion. I don't know who owns what lots. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to give you more specifics. I'm going to design a plaza for you. You'll see what it looks like. Community gateways. We're working in Southern California in a place called Borrego Springs. Anza Borrego Desert State Park is there. And by the way, they had a super bloom this year. And they've got some cool little shops there in their downtown. And then they've got a golf course. I took these pictures like on a Sunday morning. I mean, this looks like this is their public washrooms right there. And right outside there, they do a public market there. They got some great resorts there. I mean, this is kind of what it looks like, but you don't see any of that. Does it look like a cool place? You don't see any of that. When you come into town, this is what you see. If you saw that sign, what would you do? You'd keep right on going. Now, I didn't see any negative signs to Grand Forks. As a matter of fact, I thought Grand Forks, from an overall appeal, was stunning. if you drive around, you'll find a few homes that are like, whoa. But generally speaking, it was stunning. So this isn't really something that you have to work on. But in their case, I told them, you'd be better off with no signs than those signs. And it really hurt their feelings. And as a matter of fact, when I went back to Rotary, they gave me a big fine, for dissing them. I said, but surely you've got an architect or a landscape artist, somebody could design a better sign. And so I left there, and about 3 weeks later, they called me and said, Roger, it kind of hurt our feelings. We're just volunteers trying to do something nice for the community. But he said, we want you to know that we took what you said from heart, and we did get rid of those signs, and we put up new signs. Your gateways are so important. This is the neighborhood I live in. How many of you are thinking, gosh, that guy lives in a trailer park? You're not, right? You just made a judgment about where I live based on that gateway, right? That's how important it is for Grand Forks. You don't need to go put out fountains and water like that. But when you go to subdivisions and they put in this kind of money, why do you think they do it? It gives you an increased perceived value of what you're going to see. And it gives you pride ownership, right? When we have company coming in to visit us at our house, I make sure we drive by that gateway. So what I mean? They go, wow, you live in a cool place. Or it gets your attention, right? And it says something about the community, and it sells the real estate faster at an increased value, and every single one of these applies to communities. So when you see welcome to Grand Forks, I would love to see a welcome to Grand Forks with a mountain bike on it and a person, a statue, even a wire figure of somebody on that mountain bike. That just welcome to Grand Forks. And then you put underneath it, BC's biking capital. Oh my gosh. So, put your gateway signs where you make the first best impression. Rarely is that at the city limits or the town limits. And use the opportunity to direct people to your downtown. And I would put BC's biking capital, downtown, next left. Now, you do have signs that say city center. And you have signs that say downtown. But that's just a designation. It's not a destination. And I'm going to get to that. I love what happened in York, Pennsylvania. Welcome to York, do not enter. Number 13, wayfinding. This was written up big time in wayfinding. And signs like this are just not very helpful. Get it? And so this is a wayfinding sign. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things on a sign. You never, ever have more than 5 items on a sign. See that sign over there on the left? That's $850. These letters right there are about this tall, about 8 inches. So sorry, speaking feet and inches, about 8 inches tall. So they put up those. They have an aqueous coating so ice graffiti won't stick on them. They have stainless steel hardware. They're mounted on existing poles. They put up 18 of those, and their retail sales increased by 22%. It needs to be a priority. It is an investment, not expense. You need to hire professionals, and it is as much a science as an art. And I am really sorry, but you need to redo these. Now, one thing I want to make right now is that I am showing you some things. I do not want somebody going back to the town or going back to somebody and say, Roger Brooks said you did a crappy job with the wayfinding. This is not about throwing anybody under the bus. This is about making it effective and make it work. And I am really sorry, these have to be redone. You never use graphic design people to design wayfinding signage, ever. But here's my problem. Number one, I cannot read it in time to make a decision. Number two, you have light lettering on a light background, so you can't even read it. Number two, food and coffee. Are we supposed to make a U-turn in the middle of a street? Or is it buried underground there? You never have arrows that point down. Lettering's half the size. You never use condensed text. Never more than 5 items. You have way too many colors. The colors should match what the Ministry of Highways or what do you have, Department of Transport, whatever it is in BC. You have to use the same color schemes they would use. Otherwise, you're going to have different color signs on the highway and different color things downtown, and people are going to go, now wait, it was all blue and green out there, and now all of a sudden it's pink and light green and orange, and I mean, never more than 5 items. You never use down arrows. The colors are non-contrasting. I mean, the logo, you don't even know what that is. You can't even see it until you walk right up to it like this. And so, but was one thing, and by the way, signage must terminate. A lot of this, and I know it's in process, but I think you need to back up a couple of steps and really start over with these. You need to start on the highway. And I know that's difficult, but you know what? You've got people from the province here that could probably help you through that minefield of dealing with the highways. And sometimes we've even seen people do wayfinding on pole banners. I'll show you an example. But the challenge is with these is, number one, I showed you a picture of a trail. We didn't find the sign to the trail till we were at the trail. It doesn't help us. There's no, by the way, now that you have a brand, biking, that's not mentioned on any wayfinding. See what I mean? Once you start with the brand, you say, oh, we need to add trailhead. We need to add these things to wayfinding. But unfortunately, these signs, probably, they need to be redone. However, they're better than nothing. Okay? So that doesn't mean they should stay, but as soon as you can, I would replace them. These are more, they're freestanding, but notice they use Helvetica. You know, I mean, this is Mount Vernon, Illinois. These are Helvetica. These are condensed font. Remember I said don't use condensed font? But in yours they were heavy condensed, and they call this kerning. Kerning is the space between letters. Yours were jammed together, which makes it almost impossible to read if you're in a vehicle. Your signs are fine if you're on foot, but they're not good if you're in a vehicle. I mean, their whole thing is all creative. That's their water tower. You know, and that's what it looks like downtown. Look at that. You know, it's big. These letters are this tall. And so this is wayfinding signage. You can do these. This is a place called Woodlands in Texas, and the sign looks like it would fit in a place called Woodlands. These would be great signs in Grand Forks because of the colors, the browns and greens. It's your whole environment. But then you could do pedestrian wayfinding here downtown. So if we're on Market Avenue, tell us what we've got on 2nd, on 3rd, on 4th, on 5th, so that we can wander off just that main street and start branching out. And so that's what they did there. I mean, look at Disney. And by the way, navigation systems are not a substitute for wayfinding. If I go back to this, where is it? Oh, I shouldn't have done this. If it wasn't for the sign, I would have never known you even had a spray park. I would never know to type that in the navigation system. I would not know that you had a campground or RV parking. Unfortunately, this doesn't help me because if I'm on the highway, I don't know that you have all this stuff. But the big challenge with that, and let me get back out of that and back where I was. So wayfinding, that's why navigation systems are not a substitute. So we type in things we know exist. Wayfinding tells us about stuff we didn't even know you had. I had no idea you had any trail systems in this town. I got here Monday. And when I got here Monday, I drove around for 3 hours. I never once found any trail anywhere. I didn't know you had trails. And I did see these wayfinding signs. There's nothing that points to any trails on these signs. And so that's how important it is. Wouldn't it be cool to have signs like that in your downtown? You know? And here in this case, they use pole banners. How cool is that? It was an easy way, even along the highway, until you can get permission, we put pole banners. And I would give you one idea, but this may get me bounced out of the province. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. And our deal's, but there's probably a district engineer that handles highway signage around here, but you need to start on the highway. And I know it's a pain. I know it's really, really important. And so it plays a role in your branding efforts. It's a major component in your marketing. It reinforces a positive experience, increases spending, educates visitor locals about what you've got, and it builds community pride. And you must hire professionals. It's called environmental graphics, not graphic design. And then good first impressions. This is community gateways. And I sat there, do we put a gateway to downtown on 2nd or on 3rd? Part of me says let's do it on 2nd because there's some good retail along 2nd. Part of it says if we do it on 3rd, but when I drove down 3rd last night, it's a lot of blank buildings and there's no real retail, but it does put you in the middle on Market. And so I'm not too sure on that, but I'd love to see some kind of gateway down the road. And by the way, it doesn't have to span the street like this or like this. It could be as simple as just doing Market District. It could be something down on the ground like that, or it could even be little pillars on both sides of the street. But just something that says, here's how you get downtown. And I mean, Lodi, California spent $1 million on a gateway. But this is in Alberta. I'm trying to think, Fort McLeod. It's their gateway, Fort McLeod. It's a town half your size. So anyway, gateways. And by the way, you don't have to wait for gateways because that's expensive. I love this. This is called street print. They're based out of Vancouver. What you see there is not paint. It is embossed down in the asphalt in the last 20 years. You could have whatever design you want. It could be like that. It could be whatever design. You can make it biking. It could be biking wheels, like the baker is doing. This is in an intersection. I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if the intersection is 2nd and 3rd and Market? Wouldn't that be cool if the whole intersection had some kind of a stamped design in it? Wouldn't that be cool? Bike spokes, a huge bike wheel with the bike spokes. And by the way, this is all embossed down in there. So it's embossed. You can do chains over it. You can do snow removal. The process is called Duratherm. And what they do is they lay down this pigment, and then this stamps it down in there. Notice how red that is? But once they're done stamping that down in there, it looks like this. And what's really cool is once they do your design, it's pretty inexpensive. The first one costs a fair amount of money, but it's about $8 a square foot. But all of these are not paint. And by the way, they just did this side. Now they're working on that side. You could drive on 10 minutes later. Lasts for 20 years. You could have whatever design. Because you know what? You're painting these every year and it looks terrible. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if this whole intersection had a huge bike wheel and then you actually had crosswalks that weren't worn off that you have to paint? Look at this. You can't even tell there's a crosswalk there anymore. That's a year old. So do something that'll last. And you may say, but this is a lot cheaper. Well, yeah, if you're doing it every year for 15 years, after a while, street print will be more cost effective. But I just love, this is what people do. This is all stamped in there. There's no pavers there. And then number 15, an intimate setting. The reason I said Market Avenue is because it's intimate. It's a narrower street. It's people have to go slow through there. You can't just cruise through there. And so you already have that. And by the way, Market Street, you've got someone downtown that goes both directions, like Home Hardware down towards the river, and then you come up towards the highway. Market's perfect. And I love the angle that it's at. I think it's ideal. So that's why I picked it, because this is what people want. They want these pedestrian-friendly, narrower streets like you have there. So, all of these are where the town needs to be charged. Public parking needs to be signed. Public washrooms, in your spending district, gathering places, there's your plaza, community gateways, a wayfinding system, downtown gateways. Out of the 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1/3 of them are for the city, 2/3 of them are for private sector. So the last bunch, and I better hurry because I'm already out of time, but we started 15 minutes late. Here's what downtown merchants need to do. The very first thing is blade signs. Can you tell me what's in any of these shops down that street? I'm not going to give you a bad time about your signs. But when we drive down the street, we see signs like this. When we drive down the street or drive down or go down a sidewalk, there is nothing down here that would say it's worth walking down there. No offense. Nothing. And so, okay, how about here? What's down there? By the way, I know you put up these little blade signs. That's another start over. Sorry. Can't read them until you're right on top of them. And they're all generic. They're all the same. Here's what you should do. These are blade signs. Every store should have their own look, their own feel. It shouldn't just be a little brown thing with a name on it. I mean, look at this. And it's easy to tell what it is. Restaurant, trains, collectibles, chocolate. Those are blade signs. Notice the consistent height and size. I mean, there you go. That's Carmel, California. There it is from a little different angle. Those are all blade signs. You know, actually, that's Nantucket. Excuse me. That's Nantucket in Cape Cod. There's Carmel, California. Every business should have their own look and feel. Now, these are a little bigger because they're on a highway. So, but on Market Avenue, they can be fairly small. This is Canmore. Canmore, you know what? The benchmark for Grand Forks is Canmore. So go over there and check it out. That's your benchmark. But that's downtown Canmore. Kitchen Boutique. And see, doing those little brown signs with name. And here's the problem. Well, we're a heritage district, and in a heritage district, we need to make everything look the same. And you know what? It doesn't do your retailers any good. I mean, you want your retailers to be successful. And so these are blade signs. This is in Lethbridge, Alberta, 100-mile-an-hour wind loads. But those signs, notice there's some blank ones. So if a merchant changes, they just change out the sign itself. They were just putting those up when I was there. So general rules, no lower than 7 feet or 2 meters, no higher than 2.7 meters, no wider than a meter. Be general rule of thumb. But I think blade signs should be organic to the retailer and not just the same thing over and over and over. It doesn't say anything. And the signs that you have that are blade signs, I can't even read them till I'm right on them. They're too small. And they're script writing, which is impossible to read. So, signage says a lot about you. Okay, some of you are a little slow on the spelling there. See the guy scratching his head. Now what do we do? You know, does that look like a nice place to stay? You just made a judgment buy a $300 sign. Or that. I love this. I saw this on a retail store once. It says, if you need a specific item, please knock. Other than that, we are closed, thank you. Would you go and bang on the door? No. Okay, there you go. How about slow church services? Been there, done that. Or what happens when you think you're going down memory lane to find out it's a dead end street? You know, or I saw this in Wyoming. I saw this in Wisconsin. I know I'm running short on time, but I got to tell you this funny story. I was speaking at the Wisconsin Governor's Conference on Tourism, 1,500 people in the audience. And I showed this sign, and this lady jumped up out in the middle of the audience, started going like this. So we stopped everything. They got a big spotlight. They shone it on her, and I said, yes, ma'am. And she yelled out, can you tell me how to get there? Sometimes signage can come down to branding. Yeah. How well received do you think he was when he got home and found his clothes hanging in a tree and everywhere? Yeah. But on your signs, always promote what it is you're selling before the name of the business. You have some businesses downtown, I have no clue what they are based on just the name. And so it's so important. What would you guess that is? Restaurant? Comedy club? They went out of business because they sold kites and windsocks. What would you guess that is? Pub? Jewelry store? They sell t-shirts and souvenirs. How would you know? Always promote what it is you're selling first. Wood merchant, down below it says quality handmade gifts and furniture. It's in script writing, which you can't read. And so it should have said quality, it should have said handmade gifts and furniture, and then say the wood merchant down on the doors. Always promote what you're selling. In Jackson Hole, Wyoming, this was Grizzly Rick's Market. He added snacks, sundaes, and drinks, and his retail sales went up by about 25%. So once again, you need wayfinding, you need blade signs, and they should be organic to the business. Because then you won't, and if you do sandwich boards, by the way, we're not big fans of sandwich boards. We think sandwich boards are great if you're a restaurant and you want to put menu items out there. But generally speaking, you need your sidewalks for people. So signage says a lot about you. Here's an entrance to a golf course. Looks pretty nice. I stooped down low to take that. But this is the sign for the Jackpot Nevada Golf Club. What would you think? How much would I have to pay you to play around the golf there? But you know, that's down at the highway. There's no arrow that even says where it is. That's actually the golf course. And this is the sign at the golf course. I said, why isn't that sign down by the highway? And they went, well, Roger, one of our students painted that billboard in the 1970s and his parents still live here. And every year the golf course revenues go down and down and down. Signage says a lot about you. What do you think? Number 17, outdoor dining. This is huge. And in a place like you have, with the weather you have, this should be a predominant thing that you do. I mean, everywhere we go, you want downtown to be where people hang out. And when you have more people hanging out and outdoor dining and outdoor places, you will have less vagrants hanging out there because they don't like being where everybody's hanging out. And you'll have less problems. This is Nelson. You don't have to go far. This is Nelson. This is Nelson. I mean, you wonder why Nelson works. This is Nelson. It's organic. You know, I mean, all of these I took in Nelson. I mean, look at this. Even this summer they have this. And then, by the way, they pack them all up in the winter for snow removal. They're in the rock. They're in the Kootenays. And so all of these are Nelson. It works. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it in Grand Forks. And by the way, all the streets in Nelson aren't exactly level. You know, so they do things like this where they actually build these decks. And they dismantle these in the winter months. I mean, is that Nelson or what? And so here it is in October. They were just getting, he took off this fascia piece down here. He's just getting ready to pack them up for the winter. You know, this is Wolfville, Nova Scotia. I love what they did. The sidewalk is where the dining is, and they route the pedestrians around. And if this can work in Nova Scotia, it could certainly work in Grand Forks. So the pedestrians, it's a non-slip service, and then that's what they do. And it's a cool, cool town. Okay, if you need another one, let's go back to Canmore. I mean, this is Canmore. That's Canmore. I mean, this just works. By the way, see the people eating ice cream? The lady that owns that shop, she says, if there's nobody sitting there, I'll give them free ice cream if they sit there. And she goes, within 2 minutes, there'll be a line out my door, people wanting to buy ice cream. Just by giving them some free ice cream, say, eat those outside, would you? And by the way, she has an unlimited line of volunteers for that. But all of these are Canmore. It's always about people. Now, I don't know, is it easy for any restaurant downtown to get a permit to do this? Is it easy? Yes. Okay, then I won't go there. Because this is in Barrie, Ontario, where we had to battle the city to get these. But British Arms, by the way, Barrie, Ontario was known for the bar scene. They have Dunlop Street, they're about an hour north of Toronto. They have Dunlop Street, and they said, Roger, we have too many bars. I walked Dunlop Street, I counted 6 bars. I said, you don't have too many bars, you don't have enough of the other stuff. So I said, why don't you get some restaurants to do outdoor cafes? It was quite a battle, but we got British Arms to do this. We got 14 restaurants in their downtown to create these, and nobody in the year since has ever heard about the bar scene because now it's the restaurant scene. Number 18, beautification. We already talked about street trees, and these are really important. That's what I love about the highway. But look at this. This is Greenville, South Carolina. That's before. Notice how many lanes and everything. This is after. This is it today. Any downtown that looks like that is going to do really well. So you do have street trees downtown. I don't know if they should be every 10 meters or so. So you may need to add some additional ones. But all these are in downtown Greenville. It's incredible. But here's the big statistic. Curb appeal can count for 70% of first-time sales. Curb appeal. There are businesses that said, we're barely making it downtown, but then I go over to the Wooden Spoon. They're packed. But there's some other businesses that just don't have the curb appeal. So if you're down there during the day, it just doesn't look, you can't tell whether they're in business or not. And so, I mean, this is my favorite town, one of my favorite towns in Canada, Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. We love color. Look at the oars up there, the blade sign, the nice sandwich board, the window boxes. I mean, there's just no reason why you can't do some of these things right here in Grand Forks. This is all Mahone Bay. Love color. Cannon Beach, Oregon. If you ever go down the Oregon coast. This is our visitor information center. Look at all the pots and planters. Make downtown beautiful. Because right now, you saw those pictures where I said there's no blade signs. Did you notice all the storefronts? Bears could be. All you have is storefronts and then concrete. Now, I understand that you're going through remediation, you're going through hell with getting insurance, you're going through all that. But as soon as you get some things going, this is Sisters, Oregon, I want you to start doing this. By the way, all merchants should have 2 feet, sorry, speaking feet, they should have at least 2 feet in front of their stores to extend window displays to exterior spaces. These are in Canmore. Keep going back to Canmore. I mean, this lady, every morning she puts all that out there. I said, how long does it take? She goes, it takes me about 20 minutes. I said, does it really help your business? She goes, without it, my business would be gone, dead. And in your downtown where you have hit and miss which businesses are open and closed, this is more important than ever, is doing little things like this. Doing little things like this. And by the way, we're not talking about clothes racks or folding tables. That makes you look like a second-class garage sale town. But once again, in Canmore, notice that. Or even, look at their bike shop. They use that space. They have right up to that line right there, and they use every inch of it. But why aren't your restaurants doing that? They had a high school shop class built that, and then the restaurant did the interior. Did the menus and the silk flowers. Why are you doing that? And even if you're not in the food business, just putting a table and a couple chairs and a couple planters, that's in Laverne, Minnesota, town the size of yours. How cool is that? You know what you could do, and I probably will do this tomorrow because of time, but this is Fredericksburg, Texas, population 5,000. Well, now it's more than that. But they all got together. What they did is they got downtown, they went business to business, said, we want to beautify our storefronts. By the way, the town of Grand Forks should take care of the curbside beautification. Your downtown business association and businesses should take care of the facade side. Don't say, well, the town owns the sidewalks, therefore they need to beautify them. This has to be a public-private partnership. In their case, they went down the road and they just said, would you donate money? We want to go to a nursery in the off-season and get whatever pots they have left over at pennies on the dollar, and we're going to line them up down the street. So somebody gave them like $40, somebody gave them $200, somebody gave them $12. I think the average donation was like $40. So they took the money, they went over to a wholesale nursery, I don't know where the closest one would be, and they did this in like October. It said, it's the end of the season. We'll take any pots you have left over. They could have a hairline cracked on them. They might have a chip out of them. If it's a matching pair and one broke, we'll just take the other one. We'll take whatever you got, give it to us for pennies on the dollar. So they went and borrowed a flatbed truck. They loaded them up with pots. They brought them back. They set them on a side street and said, merchants, help yourself. They didn't say, you only paid $12, you only get one. They just said, help yourself. So this merchant This merchant grabbed these that kind of looked similar. This one grabbed those down there. Another merchant grabbed these 2 tall ones. I mean, and then there were some left over, and so they put like a whole collection. And then what they did, it was wintertime. So they did the next thing. They said, okay, they put some river rock, small pebble rock to put in the bottom of the pots, some landscape fabric and soil. And they dumped it in the side street, and they paid high school students, any youth organization that was trying to raise money, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, band, cheerleaders, hockey clubs, you name it, and they paid the students to fill all the pots. Now it's winter, they had no plants. So what they did is they put pinwheels in them and dried flowers and stuff, and they made the national news. But because they had the kids do that, there was never a case of vandalism. Kids protect things they take ownership of. Perfect. Every meter should be a pot on market. Every meter. Not just one in front of each side of the door. On each side of the door. 70%. By the way, notice the awnings. Those are what you need to do. But notice this. This is before. Notice this. This is cool. They've got street trees, the curbside. But notice on the facade side, there's nothing going on. Before, after. Retail sales went up 35%. Just going from that to that. 35%. So, that's absolutely a true fact. Usually there's a guy in the audience that pipes up and says, that's all. But it's absolutely true. And women, the number one thing is safety. In your downtown right now, it doesn't feel safe because you have so many closures, and rightly so because of the floods. However, just by adding beautification, even in front of stores that are closed, softens the distress of downtown. It makes it pretty, and it makes people feel safe. But what do you see? Who's sitting in the benches? The guys are sitting in the benches while the women are in shopping. Been there, done that, guys? And women go, yep, that's my husband. And by the way, I have 2 words for you. Think benches. In your market district, you should have 30 benches, and benches should always be at the facade facing, oops, hope that still works, facing out. Just like a front porch. And every bench should be flanked with a pot. It's the best thing you could do in downtown. And I worked in Cardston, Alberta, where they said, Roger, if we put out benches, they have a problem with their homeless Aboriginal folks that live there, First Nations people. And they said they just hang out on all the benches. They said, you know what, you have 6 benches, put out 12. If they take up all 12, I'll pay you for them. They never took up more than the 6. And all of a sudden they weren't the eyesore because you had regular people in there mixed with them. And by the way, they moved on. There's too many people hanging out. And they now have 30 or 40 benches downtown. It's the same reason we do that on our front porches. It makes our home feel welcoming. And when it comes to beautification, winter is no excuse for not having it. I mean, that's Port Elgin, Ontario, December. I mean, look at that. It's all dried flowers and stuff. How cool is that? I mean, this is Erin, Ontario in mid-December. There's just no excuse for not making market look gorgeous. All of these are in Erin, Ontario. This is Elora, Ontario. That's cool. That's a women's clothing shop. That is really cool. And there it is. Bike racks, part of beautification. Because there is nothing that makes me want to walk down the street. It's bare bones. I mean, go to, ever been to Leavenworth, Washington? Victoria hangs out 1,000 baskets. I mean, Victoria is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But look at this. There's no curb appeal, 0. And granted, a lot of these are closed. But there's just nothing there. Oops. This should never, ever be allowed in a downtown. No, you have a cultural district, a heritage district, whatever you want to call it. You should never ever. I mean, chain link is one thing, and barbed wire. My first impression is downtown Grand Forks is not safe. Instead, why can't you do stuff like that? Is that cool or what? Or fences like this. This is still that, but it's got the wood framed, and this is actually on a slope. But anything that doesn't, even these, wrought iron. You know, I just don't understand why you would allow chain link in a down. And I think that, what is that, Service BC or whoever that is. And tomorrow, I'm even going to talk about trompe-l'oeil murals. I'll just give you a taste. That is a flat wall. There's no curve, no arch. That's all painted on. That's it before. This is the guy doing it. And there it is done. Before, during, done. Before, after. Standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, it's such a fine sight to see. There's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford slowing down to take a look at me. Notice the reflection of the girl in the flatbed Ford. Notice there's an eagle up there. Notice a couple making out. Eagles, take it easy. Winslow, Arizona, 1.5 million people a year stop to get their picture taken of that. And by the way, that used to be a furniture store. That's all painted on. It's just a wall. The furniture store's gone. Activities and entertainment, too deft. Bring downtown to life. You know, in Cannon Beach, Oregon, they paid this entertainer $35 to go out there on Friday for 4 hours and Saturday for 4 hours. He made the rest of his money on tips. And what he did is he's got the little hat, he turns it over when he's done and asks for donations. But this here is in Sisters, Oregon, he is doing stained glass. He's an artisan actually doing it there, and he sells it there. People are 4 times more likely to buy art when they meet the artist. I mean, you have this stuff in Grand Forks. You need to give them a stage, and that's your downtown. Whether it is glass blowing, whether it's pottery. I mean, these used to be bus shelters, and this is in Asheville, North Carolina. See those trays? Vendors come and they bring them up each day. And you could have 2 or 3 of those on market down the road. You know, I mean, this is bringing downtown life. That's Nelson in January. And, I mean, this is... And by the way, notice all these musicians, it's all acoustic. It's no electrics. Bring downtown to life. In this case, there's 2 restaurants, one over there and one there. They paid this band $250. They started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and they went to 6, just 2 hours. So they paid $125, they paid $125, they set up. They also sell CDs. I went to the 2 restaurant owners. They were both talking to each other when I was there. And I said, when do you serve dinner? He said, oh, we don't start serving dinner until 5. I said, well, why did you pay the band there to come there at 4? He says, because it's happy hour. By the time we get to dinner at 5 o'clock, we're already full and we've already paid for the band. Bring downtown, just start Fridays and Saturdays during your peak season. Long weekend May through Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving. I mean, start with Friday evenings and Saturdays, Sunday afternoons. Be open later and bring downtown to life. You know, yesterday when we were at the Wooden Spoon, there was a girl sitting at a table right outside the door with a guitar. I said, man, if you need to pay her $25 and let her sit out there for several hours, and because right now you don't have, in Nelson, they don't pay anybody because there's enough people hanging out. In downtown, you might have to pay, you might end up with a little bit of a budget that you have to pay buskers and entertainers because there's not enough to sustain them from being there. And that's just to get it started. But all of these are Asheville, North Carolina. There's my wife. She got caught up into the act. You know, but even this guy, he's playing an instrument called a hammered dulcimer. It says, it's called a what? And because of that, people come up and he makes a lot of money. And then our last one, give downtown a name. When we see, this is Pearl District in Portland, Oregon. I mean, here you go. We've got Vancouver as the gas towns, Pioneer Square, Seattle, San Diego, Gaslamp Quarter. I mean, we could keep going there. Nelson, Baker Street. I mean, you know, you just go through these, give it a name. When we see signs that say city center or business district or downtown, and we're on your highway, it doesn't mean anything. It's a geographic designation. But when you call it something else, and you should call it the Market District. It's Market Ave. I don't care for the word Ave, but rather than change it, you know, Market Street would be a great name. But Market Ave sounds too like a big boulevard. But you want it to sound intimate. But if you just said naming downtown, it makes it, so if there were signs on the highway that said the Market District, people are going to go, oh, that sounds like a destination, not a designation. And there it is. There's your Market District. I mean, it's that simple. Give it a name. And by the way, if the town adopts the name, then your highway department will be more likely to put up signs for it because it's an official designation. So, and these are driven by your merchants. I mean, so where do we go from here? And by the way, local customers break even, tourism could be your profit. Here's the ingredients they all had. They had a retail, they had a focus, they had critical mass, they had anchor tenants, they had pioneers with patient money, they had a narrow main street, which you already have, they have blade signs, which you need to work on, and they have outdoor patio dining, and they were beautiful. So, in that destinationdevelopment.org, we've got all kinds of videos. These are free. You can watch them as a group. You can watch them individually at home at night. They all stream. I call it Netflix for communities. And getting people downtown 250 days a year. I mean, how they did it. There's case histories, all kinds of stuff. It's all free. There's no catch. Destinationdevelopment.org. And I would urge you to do that. I mean, there's even more, you know, making the most of billboard marketing, downtown retail, you name it. There's even this is in a series. So, all of these things are there for you. So anyway, how many of these do I have up here? And so there's even public plazas, visitor information, wayfinding. There's even one on wayfinding. There's branding if you want to go further. I think downtown should be about food, and I think that your town should be about biking. I mean, why? And if you go through a public process, you're not going to get branding. Those are the two obvious things. Just take them and say, okay, what do we do next? I think you're at the point after a year after floods of going, let's get something done. And that'll help with the reflection, or help with the frustration that you're feeling as a town. I mean, even stuff like this is on there. So all of these are available for you as businesses and as local residents. And so remember, there's no catch, there's no money, there's no anything. This is my office. Tell me, Roger, you've been doing this for 35 years. We need brain dumps before you retire or die, or before some community kills you for the bad things you said. So anyway, all of this stuff. I mean, there's just tons of it there. It's all videos. We love videos and photography. And then, by the way, if you want some of these, you let me know, Amber. I'll send you a bunch. There's the 20 ingredients. These should be posted in City Hall. It should be posted at Chamber of Commerce. It should be posted everywhere. But one thing that I think would be really great is I think you should change your Downtown Business Association to Destination Grand Forks. Just change the name, Destination Grand Forks. Your downtown is a destination for locals. It's a destination for business investment. It's a destination for visitors. And then you can go beyond just downtown over time. One of your biggest challenges is you can collect a lodging tax, but you don't have any control over how it's spent. I think that's a travesty. I think the regions in BC are too big. I think that you have nothing in common with Kelowna. I mean, it's a city of 130,000 people. That's not what Grand Forks is about. But when you market big regions, you can't do specific marketing. I don't know who's going to tell the world that you're a biking capital. You have to. And the reason I say that Downtown Business Association, Destination Grand Forks should do it, is because chambers of commerce legally can't accept public money. So if the city is giving money to a chamber of commerce, and no offense to the chamber of commerce, chambers of commerce promote members only, and tax monies have to promote everybody equally. Your downtown business association, everybody within the boundaries is a member. So everybody is treated fairly. And that's why I'm saying the downtown over a chamber. I think chambers are meant to be the lobbying organization for local business, and I think they do play an important role. But when it comes to public money, we would love to see down the road you create a BIA, a Business Improvement Association, where if you as local merchants, and I'm not saying now, right now you got to get open before we start taxing you. But down the road you may say, we want to create a BIA, we're going to help fund it, city, would you match us? So if you as a DBA downtown, down the road in 3 years, let's say, you say, we're going to raise $50,000 a year, do beautification and all this stuff. Now, we'd like the city to match it with $50,000. That's what we typically see, because now the city has a vested interest in increasing the value of the buildings. That's tax base and keeping spending local. Make sense? And so at the end of the day, here's the three ones. 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. 80% of all spending is by women, and 70% takes place after 6 p.m. There's your driving things right there. Downtown is where we go after working on weekends. Needs to be open. So some of the best words of wisdom can be found downtown. Love this. These are all ones I've seen. Don't forget to buy a bottle for Mom Mother's Day. Remember, you're the reason she drinks. Or how about this one? Carrots may be good for your eyes, but booze will double your vision. Or this one here, that was pretty good. This was outside a cupcake shop. Or here you go, this one hit home. Or how about this one for Pilates? And then there's that one, teach your kid about taxes, eat 30% of their ice cream. Or I saw this on a retail sign in Okotoks, Alberta. Push, if that doesn't work, pull, if that doesn't work, we must be closed. And then for washrooms, men to the left because women are always right. So, the heart and soul of any community besides its people is this downtown. And downtowns are about people. If you want young people here, you know what? If you're losing school enrollment and you want millennials back, downtown needs to be your focus. Millennials are not the ones glued to their devices. Gen Xers are. Millennials want gathering places. Starbucks built an entire brand out of making a gathering place where people hang out. And that's what downtowns need to be about. And Petula Clark in 1964, that's her now, sang the words downtown. And when she sang those words, and one thing is I got an email from her last year and said, you know, Roger, I know you talk a lot about downtowns and there's sometimes when I do engagements where I actually play the song. And she goes, what's interesting, she still performs that song. And she goes, it's unbelievable how many people in their 20s and 30s know every word to the song because it's what they long for. Downtown should be your town's number one priority. It has nothing to do with floods. I'd say it if you never had any floods. Downtown needs to be your number one priority. You need to orchestrate the business mix. And I mean, it is that important. Because these days, even in economic development, jobs are going where the talent is or where the talent wants to be. Talent would love to live here with these amenities. You have your own ski hill, you've got biking, you've got recreation, you've got hunting, fishing, floating. You've got the amazing recreation. Now what you need to do is monetize it. And you could do that. So where we go from here, that was my last slide. I'll answer questions for about 10 minutes or so and let you go because I know I went over. But tomorrow morning from 8 to noon, what I'm going to do is we're going to talk, we're going to go out to lunch, we're going to talk this afternoon a little bit. I'm probably going to leave around 3 or 3:30, and then I am putting together your plan. I started it last night. Tomorrow morning from 8 to 12, I'm going to tell you, here's your list. And I promise you I will not make it expensive. I'll tell you one right now. On 2nd Street at Market, there needs to be a 4-way stop there. That's just ridiculous. That you could fix easy, and it's something that's been talked about already. Let's just do it. How much is that going to cost? I see traffic blowing through there, but you know, yesterday when I was driving through there, I stopped there just because I wanted to look around. Make it a 4-way stop. And by the way, the trucks that cruise through there, trucks will always go the path of least resistance, which means they'll go down the next street or they'll go off the highway around the corner, south of town, right? I mean, that's one. I mean, there's so many low-hanging fruit things you did. These plans here are fine. They're great. But they're the higher level. They're the higher level. Let's get somebody in charge. There's all kinds of grant resources. We need to do these things. Wayfinding was in here. I mean, and so this is about, let's get down to brass tacks. What can we do this week? And I'm telling you, the things that we will show tomorrow will never go out more than 36 months. It's what can we do in 2019? What can we do in 2020? What can we do in 2021? Just really cut to the chase. Let's make the to-do list. Make sense? And so this afternoon, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to make a list of ideas, and then we're going to put it all together. And this is about making stuff happen. One thing that's really important, remember, I don't want anybody here to say, well, you did that wrong. I could just hear people going to City Hall saying, you did that wrong, you did this wrong. This is not about throwing anybody under the bus. This is about what can we do to make it better. Today's the first day of the rest of the life. Make sense? Okay, you're free to go. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you.